Once again, I want to welcome each and everyone to another session of our webinar. CK Rules, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much, Rini, for having me.
All right. So without much ado, we are going to jump right into it. We are going to be talking a lot about data security, payroll software and systems, and some of the challenges and threats that face payroll systems and software in today's day and age. So just to begin at CK Bruce, can you give us a quick overview of the importance of data security in the payroll system?
Okay, excellent. Well, data is gold, okay, and data is what runs a lot of organizations, in fact, all organizations these days. And for payroll, it is definitely a very critical aspect, okay? We are entering very personal information into a payroll system, and it is critical that the protective levels are very high, both for confidentiality and integrity of the information. I mean, you can imagine what will happen to a payroll system if the information that has been entered changes. Then you can imagine that we could have a very catastrophic incident. So data security within the payroll system is perhaps one of the most paramount issues that needs to be dealt with and dealt with severely.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that insight. So based on what you just said, I want to follow up and ask you what are some of the challenges and threats that we face in the payroll systems when it comes to data security?
Well, you can imagine, I mean, as I mentioned, data is gold, and the gold comes from the opportunities within a system. Payroll is about money, okay? So it will, I mean, there's a strong attraction for anyone to try and compromise a payroll system. So lack of integrity is a big threat. Lack of confidentiality is a big threat. So we can expect that we could have intruders trying to access and compromise the system. Malware, for instance, can also cause a very serious issues for a payroll system by compromising the integrity of the system. So these are examples of very serious risks that any payroll system faces.
All right. And just following up on that, you spoke about malware and security breaches. Does the responsibility fall on, let's say, the owner of a business or the employees when it comes to breaching of security in terms of sharing passwords and whatnot?
Okay, one thing that we need to realize about security, okay? Sometimes when we mention data security or information security, the first thought that comes into our minds is that this is a technology problem, okay? Now, once you think that it's a technology problem, then invariably you will seek a technology solution. Now, that is far from the truth. Data security, information security is a people problem. It's an organizational problem. The technology is there, and it's the people that misuse it. So no matter what you do to the technology, there is a human being at a point who can compromise the security measures that you put. Okay, so it is critical that the people side of data security has a very serious eye. So the payroll system definitely would go under a process. Somebody owns the process, maybe the payroll manager or anybody, some senior person. That person owns the system. Okay. Now, when you own something, the risks associated with the ownership, you own it. Okay, I think it's something that we need to understand. Once you own an asset, you own the risk. And once you own the risk, then the controls to mitigate the risk, you also own it. So yes, I mean, I would say that a senior member of the company should own the system and the risks.
Okay. Ahead of this one, I was reading quite a bit about cybersecurity since it's not my field. I came across some compliances and regulations which I just want to, discuss with you as well and see how those mitigate some of the issues that we may face in the company. So when it comes to data security, security regulations like the DPA 2012, how does it impact design and maintenance of payroll systems?
Okay, so the Data Protection Act 2012 is legislation in Ghana. It's law in Ghana. Okay, one of the things around this is that a lot of companies don't feel that they need to do some of these things. So laws are being put in place to ensure that companies take these things very, very serious. Okay. Now the DPA 2012 is about data privacy. You would agree with me that with a payroll system, we are collecting personal information about people. Okay, we call that PIIs, personally identifiable information. My name, my date of birth, my address, and my account number, and some other very personal details. Now, these pieces of information must be kept private. Okay, so we would expect that a payroll system would adopt the principle of the privacy by design, so that the system would support the laws, the principles of privacy. So it is, that law would massively impact any payroll system.
Okay. And what steps do organizations that fall under these laws, or how to better put it, what steps should they take to ensure compliance with data protection regulations in the context of payroll, to be specific?
Okay, that's a very, very good relevant question. So we have information security frameworks. Okay, there's no need for a company to reinvent the wheel and start looking as to how they can put in adequate controls within their environment. We have ISO 27001, which is an information security framework. It will enable you to create an information security management system. Okay, and this framework is holistic and comprehensive, and it covers all the necessary areas that a organization would want to do to ensure a high level and adequate level of security within their organization. So it runs from HR security to operations security to communications, access control. It covers everything. It covers everything. And definitely, I would expect that a payroll company to demonstrate that they are in compliance with the law would certify on ISO 27001. And once an organization is certified on 27001, I think that demonstrates that they are serious about risks and about information security, and they have set up all the processes and controls and policies to ensure that they are providing adequate protection. Let me just add that there's an additional standard which is linked to ISO 27001, which is ISO 27701. So that is the privacy information management system. And they go together, okay? And that's, so once a company does both, you address information security and you address privacy. So those two must be done, and the company should certify on both of them to be able to demonstrate to the general public that they are very, very serious.
Okay, okay. So you have mentioned a lot of technical terms and a lot of ISO 2012, 2017. As things like these, are they open to the general public where like there's somewhere we can go to read about these things, be aware of them, so that we can double check with companies that we're working with, or maybe payroll softwares or systems that we may or may not be using to see if they actually follow these regulations?
Well, once the company certifies, I would expect that they will trumpet it. Okay, so there are, I mean, there's logos that you would need to put around your marketing and advertising, which will show that yes, you are certified. Now, depending on which certificate authority certifies you, any member of the general public can go and verify whether you are actually certified. Okay, so it is, I mean, it is an emblem, a mark of an organization demonstrating their seriousness.
Okay, okay, thank you. Initially, when we started the webinar, you spoke about the fact that when it comes to cybersecurity and data protection, we all think technology. Since it's not only technology and there's some factor involved when it comes to humans, how important is it for employees to be aware in maintaining data security for payroll systems?
Okay, now let me just put that into perspective. Okay, you go and buy a firewall, an expensive firewall. Now you might feel protected that, oh, we have this firewall in place, so we are safe. Now, we need to understand that there's a human being who is going to administrate that firewall, okay? So me as an intruder, which would be easier for me to compromise, the firewall or the human being managing the firewall? It is far easier for me to attack the human being, okay? That's what we call social engineering. There are so many ways to con, to, you know, to do something that would make him open up the firewall for me to come and intrude. Okay, there are so many ways to compromise a human being. So you would realize that it is essential that the people are completely on their toes. They fully understand if they are being socially engineered, and they fully understand if somebody is trying to con them to do something. Now, one thing that we also need to put into perspective is the fact that the culture of the organization, culture determines behavior, okay? So certain things that shouldn't be done, like sharing passwords, not observing the policy, you know, certain behaviors that can compromise the security of the data. We need to ensure that people are fully aware about it, okay? So an awareness program is towards ensuring that people behave properly. One of the main things is that we need to ensure that people comply with policy. Policy is not there just to for the auditors to show it to the auditors when auditors come around. Far from it. Okay, it is meant to address the risks in the organization. Okay, so we need to ensure that the people within the organization are complying, abiding by the policies that have been designed to ensure the data security of the payroll system.
Okay, all right, thank you. moving on from that, I want us to talk a little bit about authentication and access controls and data security, right? What role does a robust system play or robust mechanisms play when it comes to ensuring sensitive payroll data?
Well, access control is seen as the bedrock for data security. I mean, access control simply means that we are ensuring that the right people have access to the right data at the right time. Okay. Now, you can imagine that we cannot just allow anybody to have access to a payroll system. It must be based on roles. Okay. So the only way to ensure that it's not anyone who is accessing the system, we need to have access control. So for the system, it could be logical access control. You are entering username and password. I would also expect that the room in which the system is accessible also might have physical security. So like a biometric physical security at the door. All these are access control. And as I said, it is essential. This access control is the bedrock for security. Okay, so it plays a very, very critical, essential part in ensuring that we are just allowing authorized people to get access. Okay, and that is a very, very important aspect of ensuring security. We need to know who are the authorized people, and only them can get access to the system.
Okay. And I believe when organizations do that and do that well, they'll be able to map and trace whatever activity is done by any persons that log in with the access provided to them, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah. Most certainly. One aspect of access control is the audit trail that it creates. Okay, and that is very, very essential. Things can happen, and we would want to know who accessed the system at a certain time. Okay, let me just say this: security is never 100%. You can never get 100% security. So one of the things that we also need to put in place is how we can monitor and recover from any breach, or be able to investigate and get the information that would enable us determine what happened. Okay, so the an access control, a system with proper access control would give us those logs, those audit trails, which would enable us to trace and investigate if anything goes wrong. So yes, that goes without saying how important that aspect is for a payroll system.
Okay, great. Moving on from that, from authentication controls and access controls, I think the next point I would like to discuss is data encryption. Okay, how does that contribute to providing the overall security of a payroll software or payroll information?
Okay. Well, to be able to provide that high level of security, we need to have layers of security. Okay. So as we just discussed, access control is to ensure that only the authorized persons get access. So that is one layer. Now, I also mentioned that nothing is 100%. So we need to plan for the eventuality that somebody can gain access inadvertently. Okay, somebody can compromise the system. So the next level is to encrypt the data. Okay, so even if somebody gets access, and they try to get the data is encrypted. They need another set of credentials to try and decrypt that data. Okay, so encryption is very, very important to give that level of security. Now, a few years back, encryption was expensive. So we were choosy about the things that we would like to encrypt, okay? But these days, the cost and the technology around encryption has dropped. So we are able to encrypt everything. So the best practice is that encrypt all your data, encrypt everything, okay? And the system can work with the encryption very effectively and provide you with the high level of security that is required for a payroll system and a system like a payroll.
Okay, great. CK, just to break things down a little bit, because I believe not all of us may understand the technical terms. So when you say encryption, what do you mean by encryption? So
sorry. Sometimes I forget myself. Okay, so you are transforming data that you can normally read into gibberish. Okay, so if I encrypt data, it cannot be read unless I have the right, code to be able to decrypt it. Okay, so for instance, I save a file as "How are you?" If I encrypt it, it will appear like as if it's corrupted. It's gibberish. You can't even read anything. Okay, right. So that means that if somebody compromises and tries to read the data, they can't. They will not be able to read it. Okay, so that's what encryption does. It masks the data so that it cannot be read by anybody who doesn't have the encryption codes.
Okay, that's good. So if let's say an organization does the encryptions, they ensure that their authentication controls and access controls are all in check, they have done the necessary employee trainings, and they still happen to have an incident report or there's a breach in security in the payroll software, how would you advise that they handle something like that?
Okay, as I said, we need to continually have layers of security. Okay, so we have access control, we have our policies, we have encryption, but we still need to plan for a breach. We still need to ensure that we are able to respond very quickly to a breach and ensure that the damage that can be caused is greatly minimized. Okay, now technology has become so sophisticated. The attack methods have become so sophisticated that we need to ensure that we have incident response management in place. So that is also part of the things that will be set up with ISO 27001. So basically, a response procedure allows the response team to be able to identify if something is going wrong and to be able to respond quickly and rectify, remediate the problem. Okay, so it ensures that customers, clients would hardly ever realize that something has gone wrong, and it is a very, very important process that needs to be implemented alongside all your security measures and controls.
Okay. Based on everything you have said, what are some of the key components of an effective incident response plan for a payroll data security breach?
Well, one thing is recognizing that there's something going wrong. Let me give you a scenario. Okay, a user might report that, oh, my mouse is not working. Okay, so he or she is trying to move the mouse or move the mouse pad, and the cursor is not responding accordingly. Okay, now you might think that, oh, this is a trivial issue, and be lackadaisical with responding and attending to the user's report. Even the report, the user might not even think that this is critical, and might just shut down the computer and then go home or something. Okay. In actual fact, it could be an intruder. So you could have somebody sitting in Singapore who has isolated your machine in a way that the user sitting in front of the machine, any command they give, the computer doesn't respond, and the computer is being controlled from Singapore. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that to the user, oh, my mouse is not working. But in actual fact, this is a complete intrusion. So we need to have that process to be able to identify, report issues as quickly, as soon as possible. Nothing is trivial. Nothing should be seen as trivial. Every single thing and every single anomaly that a user sees in the system must be reported, because it could actually be an intruder and not something trivial as they think.
Okay, I like the fact that you spoke about intruders, because it takes me to my next question when it comes to third-party vendors, when it comes to the payroll software. Right? How does an organization ensure that they also adhere to the same security protocols that they have internally?
It's quite simple. Treat your third parties as if they were your staff. So everything that your staff has to do, the third party has to do. Okay, they have to adhere to policy. They have to sign confidentiality, non-disclosure agreement. That there has to be full articulation of what sanctions would incur if they don't comply with the policy. Now, before we onboard any third party, we need to do a comprehensive due diligence of that company. Okay, and that is something that sometimes companies gloss over and don't do an in-depth. Okay, it has to be comprehensive and in-depth, and particularly if that company is going to do an integration to the payroll system, then I would say that they need to also be certified on ISO 27001. That should provide us with the indication that they also take information security very serious. Okay, we need to have that assurance that that third party is serious, equally serious about information security.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that. Speaking of third parties, putting them aside, when it comes back to the internal policies of organization, how does one cultivate a culture of continuously improving data security for their payroll systems?
Okay, let me give you another scenario for you to think about. Okay, now we in Ghana, we run red lights. Everybody runs red lights. What happens to them? Nothing. But the same people, when they go to Europe and North America, they stop running red lights. Why is that? Okay, it's the same people who, it's not a different people. You see?
Yeah.
So it is the discipline and the control and the enforcement of the policies that makes it very, very, critical to ensure compliance. Okay, if you were in London and you run a red light, you will be caught and you will be sanctioned. Okay, that will ensure that next time you don't do it. Okay, how many of us have been caught and sanctioned in Ghana? Okay,
Yeah.
You will just go and pay 10 CDs, 20 CDs to the policeman, and then that's it. And then 20 CDs is not a sanction. I would gladly run red light, and to pay 20 CDs. So the management of the organization must ensure that they are very committed to enforcing every single aspect of the policy document. Okay. That is the only way to really change the culture and ensure that people begin to behave in the way that would ensure the data security.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for your response. I think we'll just take a break from this to take a look at the question that's coming from the chat. We have Peaches asking if you think it's safer using cloud-based payroll solutions or on-premise payroll solutions.
Very interesting question. And I know how people feel about the cloud, that, my data is not with me, and who owns the data. You never stop owning your data. We need to understand that. Okay. But to be honest, your data is much safer in the cloud. It is incredibly much safer in the cloud. Now, if you go to a data center like Microsoft data center, AWS data center, these are major cloud service providers, Google data center. The security at those data centers are incredible. There's no way that if you have your system on-prem, you could provide that level of security. You cannot. Okay. Now, having your data on-prem, to be honest, it is much easier for anybody to compromise. Okay, it is so much easier. So having your data in the cloud with a global service provider. So sometimes there are so many service providers. There are so many unknown ones, and sometimes we would want to cut costs by finding, a cheap service provider. We need to be careful. Okay, which service provider we are using. If we are using, a well-known global service provider, I can safely say that our data is much safer than it being in a system that is on your premises.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, answer. Beatrice, I hope that answers your question. So moving on from that, we want to find out what are some of the KPIs for organizations that is to measure effectiveness of their data security, or the measures that have been put in place.
Sorry, come again with your question.
KPIs for organizations when you want to measure the effectiveness of their data security measures put in place.
Yeah, very, very, very critical. We need to have critical KPIs around the people. Okay, as I said, it is easier to secure the technology than secure the people. Okay, so one of the key things that I always want to measure is how the people are responding to training and to awareness, how we are eliminating negative behaviors that compromise information security. Okay, so one of the first things that we need to do is to identify the behaviors that we want to eliminate, and then embark on an awareness program, and then do the reviews and the audits to check whether the behaviors have been minimized or been diminished. Another important metric indicator is the number of incidents that we record within the environment. Okay, so when we have a clear indication that incidents are reducing, it's an indicator that the overall information security culture, behavior, processes are working. Okay, so that is perhaps one of the most critical indicators to show that things are working. But I must add that we need to have indicators for all the critical information security processes, that those processes are actually also being well used. For example, access control, is access control being well observed? We need to have the indicators there. So all the critical processes must have the metrics embedded within them.
Okay, okay, I think that's good. We have another question coming in. It says, what are the top cybersecurity threats that businesses in general should be aware of?
Your biggest threats are your own people. Okay, that is the biggest threat. Okay, I mean, there's a Bank of Ghana report that says that the biggest threat to our banking ecosystem is the insider threat. Okay, now the person inside has so much opportunity that if we do not have the right monitoring and the right controls around the people, then invariably they will be doing anything. And one thing that we need to realize that if the person is not caught, they will try it again. Okay, the thing about cybercrime and these intrusions is that people will repeat a attack method that has been successful and has gone undetected. Okay, they will repeat it, and in fact, they might just copy and paste it to another company. Okay, so it is really essential that the insider threat is looked at, it is put into right perspective, because a lot of companies ignore it and they think that we are guarding against external intruders. Okay, for an external intruder to succeed, they need to collaborate with an internal person. Okay, so our biggest threat is our people. Now, the secondary threat that I would also like to talk about is vulnerability management. Okay, so our applications have vulnerabilities. Those vulnerabilities need to be patched. Okay, now if you do not patch your vulnerabilities, they are an open gateway for malware, for viruses. Okay, so a virus can infect your system through a vulnerability. So we need to be scanning for vulnerabilities regularly. And once we find the vulnerability, it needs to be patched, which would give us the right level of protection against malware. Okay, your antivirus cannot do much, seriously. Okay, against some of the very vicious malwares that are around. Okay, so it is this vulnerability management practice that would give you the proper level of protection that you need.
Okay, so I have a question from my side personally, based on the response that you gave. When you spoke about the fact that our antiviruses cannot necessarily protect us from some of the very dangerous malware that's out there. Does your own, or like you mentioned, your employees are your most dangerous, or some are part of the vulnerabilities when it comes to your data security. Does that include like us visiting certain websites or download certain documents without necessarily checking it ourselves? So these are things that may happen without our knowledge and not necessarily sharing data with people. But it is us visiting certain websites or downloading certain applications or documents from certain websites also contribute to such breaches.
The answer is a big yes, huge yes. Okay. Now, viruses being attached to data is passive. They no longer do that. That is old school. Okay. Viruses have become much more sophisticated. So in actual fact, you don't need to do anything. Just having a connection to another resource over the internet, as you said, visiting certain websites, so it happens in the background, and it can just move from one system into your system without you knowing, no indication, nothing at all. Okay, so yes, it is that serious, and it is that easy for malware to move from one system to the other as long as it has a connection. Okay, so that's why when we are integrating with third parties, that needs to be seriously looked at. Okay, having the right firewalls in place, the right practices on both sides to ensure that nothing can get through.
Okay, all right, great. I think we'll take the last question from the chat. We're asking, how can businesses ensure that their employees are adequately trained and aware of cybersecurity best practices?
I think that one of the best ways is to have a cybersecurity company that is your service provider. Okay, it is difficult to keep up if this is not your business. Okay, so some companies try and think that they can ensure that they are keeping up with the latest developments, all the latest information. It's difficult. There's a lot happening. Okay, there's really a lot happening. So it is best to align with a company that can regularly keep you updated with what is going on, what are the awareness and trainings required to keep your team and your staff up to date on a continuous basis. Okay, we need to realize that security is not a destination. You never arrive. You never arrive at that, okay, I'm secure. Okay, the environment keeps changing, meaning that once the environment changes, the risks modify. And it will mean that the protective measures that you need also need to modify. It's a continuous, never-ending process. Okay, so that is a very, very critical aspect to keep you up to date and to keep you at the high level of protection that is needed.
Okay. So one final question before we close the curtains on this webinar today. When it comes to security breaches, okay, and a company finds out that security has been breached and some data has been lost or has been stolen from them, is it right or is it essential for them to inform their users or their customers that there has been a security breach, or is it just their responsibility to ensure that this is tackled and something like this does not happen again, and they find out where the source was from and what they can do or things they can put in place to ensure that things like this don't happen? And are there laws backing things like this?
Yeah. This is one thing that companies are not happy about at all. Yes, there are laws around this. Okay, now all the laws, the Data Protection Act demands that you inform the Data Protection Commission when you have a breach. Okay. Now, you are also supposed to inform the user when when the breach that happens involves their data. Okay, it is law that you need to inform, but you can imagine that this is a Herculean task in doing that. So companies can get by communicating that, oh, like, we have a system downtime or this, being, for want of a better word, diplomatic around the communication. Okay.
Okay.
So that can be something that organizations can do. But the fact of the matter is that by law, you need to inform your regulator and your customers. By law, yes, you do.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. I think Sigebo, this brings us to the end of our webinar. If you have any last words that you'd like to share with us, any advice you'd like to give to our listeners when it comes to data security and cybersecurity in general, we would like to hear some last words from you as well.
Okay, most certainly. I think companies need to realize. Okay, what I said at the beginning about the perspective of companies about cybersecurity, thinking that it's a technology problem, it's an IT problem. Oh, if we are talking about cybersecurity, then go and call the IT people. Companies need to realize that is not it. The issues are around the people. Okay, we need to fully realize that it's a people problem. Okay, it's a management process problem. Okay, we need to ensure that we are looking beyond just our technology solutions, our antivirus, our firewalls, intrusion detection, and all the other cybersecurity solutions that we spend a lot of money to buy. The focus, we need to put considerable focus around the people. Okay. Now, the only way to manage the people is through the policies, and as I said, through ensuring that they are complying with the policies. So the policies have to be enforced. And that is something that companies really need to put into their heads and into their minds. Thank you so much.
Thank you too as well. Thank you, CK Blues, for joining us. Thank you to all our listeners. We appreciate you. And I hope we all learned a thing or two. I definitely learned a lot of things. Most importantly, when I found out that my antivirus does not protect me at all, even after paying for it. But I think we learn new things every day, and we are very grateful to CK for making time for us and joining us tonight. We are looking further to having further discussions with him, maybe in the future, where we can share more insights for our lovely viewers and then also our clients and users as well. We believe that all of this helps gives confidence to our users to let them understand and know that when it comes to the Achieve Payroll software, we have all the necessary regulations in place and are quite very, very, very aware of everything that needs to be done to ensure that we hold the utmost security and also put a lot of attention to our data security. So we appreciate your time and we look forward to speaking to you later. Have a good night and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you.